So I guess officially welcome to our Foodnet informational training session for South Point. Our hope is to start our new Foodnet site that will be taking place Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. starting December 2nd. Tonight, I really wanted to talk about the why of why we would be doing this, and we'll get a chance to introduce ourselves as a way to understand a little bit of the why. We'll talk a little bit about the what is Foodnet, and what will ours be like. And that's, I guess, a little bit of the how as well. And then we'll get into the volunteer positions and like what we need from different folks. And then, while I'll make sure that there's time for questions at the end, Ken, you don't get the joy of knowing this, but the Kennedys and the Winks joined with me in a Bible study, and they know that you just jump in. It's group led. And okay. So anytime you have questions or thoughts or ideas, please share them. And we can kind of do that. But as a way to talk about the why of why are we doing this, I wanted us to kind of get a chance to introduce ourselves. And maybe as a way of doing that, love for you to share your name and a food memory, a time of either feeding or being fed that was meaningful and life-giving to you. So, is there anybody who would be willing to start us off?
I will, and I'll try not to cry. My name's Diane Kennedy, and just that in the food memory?
Sure, you can say anything else you want, but that was the minimum.
The minimum, okay, yeah. As if Diane has to have a minimum of words. So,
I didn't say anything.
Anyway, I'm going to share a food memory. I mean, my family was all about food growing up. Sharing food with other people. My parents cooked, baked all the time. So we opened a bakery in their honor and lasted for 3 years. And the name of the bakery is Schmiley Tree Bakery. Schmiley stands for See How Much I Love You. But my biggest food memory that I try not to cry about is when we lost the bakery, and we lost everything, absolutely everything. So much so that we were having to go to food banks, and that was really difficult for us. My family, Cheryl, my daughter's husband, had a job. Cheryl was our chef, and he had a job, and he was able to provide okay for his family. They brought us food. The grandkids brought us bags of, I will not cry. They brought us bags of food. It was one of our lowest points, but that meant so much to them and so much to us. And to this day, it's actually a good memory that our daughter and grandkids provided for us in a really, really difficult time. So that's my food memory.
Thank you. Thank you. Who else would like to go?
I'll go next. I have really...
Say your name.
What?
Say your name.
Oh, sorry. I'm Dan Winkenwerder. I have really good memories growing up. My family, my mom's side of the family, was pretty much centered here in Lincoln, and she had some extended, but there was a good core here in Lincoln, and we would get together very regularly. We would hardly miss a week when the weather was cooperative, and we would have a picnic, and it was just it was almost like Thanksgiving every week. Everybody would bring food, so you get to try different foods. And it was just a really good family time. And all the cousins would play together. And I really enjoyed that. And so to me, the food part, it's such a connection. It's such a way to connect with family, with people. And it's just the vehicle to have good family times, good family memories. And for anyone that struggles with having enough food and stuff, I just really kind of feel for them.
Well, I could jump in. I'm Ken Johnson. Bev is in the other room. She's listening again. I guess I have a whole bunch of them. Memories of I guess of plenty. I've never been in a situation where I've thought about not having food. I do think about it now, but not for our own. I know there's a lot of people out there that are going meal to meal and day to day. One of my favorite memories is I guess my future father-in-law was an employee at Hughes Brothers in Seward. And Hughes, the brothers owned a shack out on the Blue River. And on Monday nights, they would have a steak feed. It was, I believe, every Monday. I didn't get to go every Monday, but I got to go enough. And it was just a wonderful gathering of people, mostly employees, but friends of employees and relatives. So we got to know each other and enjoy the camaraderie of those evenings, and it was really special. So.
I'll go. My name is Carly Kennedy. Like you, Ken, I have several food memories, and I thought about several to share. But one that was really special to me, and I think Diane, when several years ago, I don't know, maybe 10, my parents lived in Hawaii. My dad was pastor of a church there. And so we went over to see Hawaii and visit my parents. But on our last night there, the Church of Hawaiian Natives had a luau, more like a native luau. And we all met on the beach, and they sent us off with, it was kind of a sending off party for us. And they cooked all kinds of food that we had on the beach. And it was just a fun time of fellowship and really experiencing the native tradition of food and fellowship and sharing and that kind of thing. But I mean, they barbecued spam. We did have spam.
They love spam there.
But they barbecued probably 5 or
Everything.
6 different kinds of meats, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yes.
And of course, it was a gorgeous setting.
On the beach, yeah.
But it was a really fun
That was
time.
a good one.
Well, how about this?
I don't have to. You could. I'm Kathy Winkenwerder, and I think most of my memories that I come back to are baking with my mom, and then when Willa was 2, being the first, grandchild, I had the cookies already made, and she came over to help me decorate, and she would put the red hots on and lick her fingers and pick up the red hots and put it on and lick her fingers. Those are Willa's cookies. So it's just a fun memory that I were laughing so hard at her, and she was just talking the whole time, and she really thought she was helping a lot, and it was just fun. So
Well, thanks, Kathy. And I'm Steve Mason. Sorry, I'm, as you all have shared your stories, like food memory after food memory is going through my mind. But I had a cousin. There were a group of three of us boy cousins and then my sister, and we were a close knit crew. And my oldest cousin, Ben, when he was 25, was killed in a hit and run accident. And it was a really hard thing for our family, obviously. He had a child on the way and a 6-year-old child. But Ben was notorious at every family gathering. So my grandma always had those the rolls that you just get right out of the freezer and you plop them in and you bake them and they get really big and wonderful. The yeast rolls. And Ben would always put an absurd amount of jelly on those rolls. And so my grandma always made extra rolls for him and always put the jelly right in front of his spot. And so it seemed like every time after his death, at any family gathering, at some point, somebody be getting a roll out and have the jelly. And we'd talk about Ben and we'd think about Ben and laugh about his ridiculous jelly consumption. And so I love hearing these stories, how like food can be a gateway to belonging. Food can be about the deeper connections. It can be a way to welcome us in. It can be a way to send us out. It can be a way that we can stay in touch with even people beyond the grave. And it's a way not only in the eating of the food, but the sharing it and the preparing it. Even if I am going to recommend that as we serve Foodnet to not lick your fingers after everyone, it can be a way to connect us. And I think so many of the stories in scripture are all about, Jesus uses so many parables that involve food. We celebrate as Christians the Last Supper, especially as disciples of Christ. We call ourselves the people of the table. And the most common metaphor for God's reign or God's kingdom in the Hebrew Bible is always the feast, either like the great wedding banquet or the eschatological banquet. It was always about a feast. And so for me, I think that's a big reason as to why we have this great opportunity to not only feed bodies, but to feed souls and to feed hearts through Foodnet. So I'm excited that we're embarking on this as a congregation. I want to ask, so now that we've all had a chance to kind of introduce ourselves and we're kind of shifting to what is Foodnet, what are we doing? Were any of you familiar with Foodnet before?
not really.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Well, if you'll permit me, cause I'm sure you've probably seen the video, but let me just show it one more time. I know it's a little ridiculous here, but allow me to share the screen because, I found that I didn't get a full grasp of what Foodnet was, and I knew that it would be a lot to ask people to volunteer for something if they didn't understand. So I created this video and wanted to share it. And so let's watch it really briefly and go from there. Foodnet of Lincoln, Nebraska. Tummy fill, not landfill. Foodnet is a nonprofit working to get nutritious food to hungry people while reducing food waste in our neighborhood. Started in 1985 with the motto, "Tummy fill, not landfill," Foodnet has grown over the last 35 years and now serves an estimated 250,000 people each year. How can this all-volunteer nonprofit make such a big impact? In the United States, on average, 40% of all food that is produced ends up in landfills. Many grocery stores, restaurants, and other places that serve fresh food don't have a way to connect their excess perishable food to families experiencing food insecurity. That's where the team of almost 600 Foodnet volunteers help coordinate with the 100 plus businesses donating food every single day of the week. We need volunteers to pick up food and drive it to sites, volunteers to organize and sort food, volunteers to welcome and serve guests so that good food gets to good people and stays out of landfills. So if you want to be a part of this ongoing effort to reduce hunger and food waste, or if you want more information on Foodnet and its services, go to foodnetlincoln.org and begin your part today. Because no one in Lincoln should go hungry, and with your help, no one will. All right. Thank you for allowing that ridiculousness there. So just a little background, in the video it said that Foodnet's been around since 1985. It was started by two pastors, and right now there are once we get going, there will be two different Foodnet distribution sites each day across Lincoln or in the Lincoln area. And three on Saturdays, I believe. And Foodnet uses, you can go on their website. It's foodnetlincoln.org. And there has information if you're curious. It not only will soon list us as one of the distribution sites, but it lists the 100 plus donors, some contact information, and then a background about the history that I tried to sum up in that video. And one of the things that makes it possible, because I don't know how you feel, but oftentimes when I've been a part of communities that have been talking about ministries like this, the first question is legal liability. We're a litigious country. We're really curious about all that. But there's a wonderful federal law that was passed. It's called like the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. And essentially what it does is it gives, it's kind of like the Good Samaritan laws, saying as long as you are not acting maliciously, or in this case of food distribution, not purposely trying to poison anyone, that all third-party vendors, which would be like us giving away other people's food, are absolved from any legal liability. So from a legal standpoint, that clears us. I think we'd want to make sure to serve as fresh and as quality of food as possible. I'll say I've had the opportunity to serve. I've tried to do some research and go around to some of the different food nets in preparation for this. And you would be astounded at the food, or maybe you wouldn't be astounded at the food that would otherwise get thrown away, taken off the shelves, end up in the landfills. Perfectly good stuff. In fact, one of the things we'll talk about later is that one of the things I like about the Foodnet model is that there's not a really clear division between volunteers and guests, that oftentimes, I think we'll encourage people, if you really need food, go ahead and you can do your shopping beforehand. But otherwise, there will even still be, after all of our guests go through, enough food for our volunteers to take home whatever you need and to help reduce food waste. So it's a nice thing all around.
So is there Foodnet in Lincoln now?
So there are there had been like 22 sites before
Oh.
COVID. So many of them shut down. And so now there's 14 sites, will
Okay,
be
so-
number 15. Yeah, so there's 2 a day. The closest one, there's geographically, is that there's one at is it Zion Presbyterian that's at 27th, just north of Old Cheney.
Mhm.
Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just started a Foodnet, but that's Saturday mornings. But so they're the closest one. Otherwise than that, pretty much everyone else is north of A Street. But just for example, I mean, not only has COVID made it so that you never know who's going to be experiencing food insecurity, but especially right now, people are needing it, and directly across the street from our church, some of the apartment buildings are Section 8. So I mean, you're already working with people who need governmental assistance, and I'm glad we have it there for them. One thing to say about Foodnet, I said that anybody can receive food. You're not breaking any rules to volunteer and to take food, because the thing I like about Foodnet, because it is, I don't know if you noticed it in the video, non-governmental. There are no government ties, because if there were, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if there were, there would be a track record of, you'd need licenses, you'd need proof of, of uninsurance, or somehow that you were in the system. But here there's no check to see, like, are you deserving of food? It's just, do you want some? Do you need some? And so that's nice. We will take part of our job. We'll have a volunteer each time who will be the check-in person. For this, we're not needing IDs. We're just needing to say how many people come through the doors and how many people in their household do they represent. And then that person will also be the greeter that will make sure the person is appropriately wearing a mask, and that they will spritz the person's hands with hand sanitizer. We have spray hand sanitizer, and so we'll make sure that they get all safe going in. And they'll also have a thermometer, a laser thermal thermometer. I know that even with all that, nothing is perfect, but we're hoping between masks, temperature, and hand sanitizer, that goes a long ways. And we're going to try and keep the space. I'll show you more, because I'll do another screen share to show you a bit more about the kind of layout of how we're hoping to do the church, and how we're trying to make sure to spread everybody out, and even in winter times to try and keep air moving throughout the church. But do you have any other questions about Foodnet itself before we get into what does our Foodnet site look like? I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
I was just curious, is Lincoln's Foodnet totally autonomous, or is there like a national oversight? Or
So yeah, that's a great question. So they are a part of, and I'm going to try and pull this up while I'm thinking of it, Dan. They are a part of a larger organization called Food Donation Connection. Or sorry, they're not a part of, but they are partnered with Food Donation Connection. And that is a national organization. Each of those partnerships looks a little bit different. Each of those organizations looks a little bit different. And this kind of works more with retail. In fact, when we start talking about our volunteers and what we need in our site, as it starts, they want to start us off pretty on the conservative side to make sure that we don't overwhelm us, which I'm okay with. Let's do it small, let's do it right, and then if we need to grow, we can. But we'll have 3 pickups each week from Russ's from different Russes around town. I'll talk about that in a sec. But they deal more with retail. There are other organizations like the different food banks across the country do have more involvement with retail sometimes. Or there's also, if you're familiar with the Society of St. Andrews, it is the largest gleaning organization, which is essentially what we're doing. It's a biblical practice that took place in fields where farmers would leave some of their leftover crops for people, usually for immigrants and widows, to come in and to get the leftovers. And so the St. Andrews Society literally has volunteers going through more agricultural places where farmers say, we won't do like a double harvest where we go back through and make sure. We'll leave it for your volunteers, and your volunteers can come in and take whatever you want. Or they'll plant a few rows for Foodnet, or sorry, for like the food organizations. But Foodnet is different than that.
What kinds of foods does Russ's provide? Is it just Russ's?
So let me just sorry. Let me share the screen again just to give you a really quick overview. Oh, that isn't helpful. There we go. So on the Foodnet website, and it's not the sexiest website, but that's nonprofit. Woot woot. So some of the I'm just going to scroll down. Here are some of the different donors that they have.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it's strange, like things that you wouldn't think about, like LPS and UNL. And some of these, it's mostly grocery stores. It's some food places where they have stuff that's easily to be shared and to be repackaged.
Wow.
But it is mostly grocery stores. Oh, Society of St. Andrew. Okay, so I didn't know that we actually had an official connection with them, but we'll see. So yeah, those are the ones in Lincoln that for Foodnet that they have partnerships. To give you an example, most of what I've seen. So I've volunteered at a few times at 3 different Foodnets, and on average, those good old church tables that are the 6 by 2.5 church tables, 6 foot by 2.5 foot church tables. Most of them have anywhere between 10 to 15 tables full of food. So I'd say usually it's about a table or 2 of fruits, about 3 tables full of vegetables and greens and that kind of stuff. 2 or 3 tables of like chips, canned things, bagged stuff. Then usually 2 tables of, I'm not doing the math, but a table or 2 of like meats and prepared, like rotisserie chickens or pre-made sandwiches or things like that, or like the deli leftovers. And then there's a table full of dairy, and then there's usually 2 tables full of baked goods, of breads and whatnot, and sweets. And then there's usually like a table full of soda or water and odds and ends. Like I've seen everything from mittens and hats to I really want to get us connected with Trader Joe's, because unfortunately we aren't, but I was really hoping, since we're like geographically so close to Trader Joe's, that we would, but I think they donate on a different day. So it's all about whenever the businesses want to donate. But like Trader Joe's donates a ton of flowers and house plants. And so, which I was like, that's cool because if I was living on a really tight income, the first thing to go is going to be any kind of flowers.
Yep.
That's just so frivolous. But man, if you're really struggling, how nice would it be to have some fresh flowers in your house? Yeah. So that's kind of, if that gives you a bit of a sense of what is usually.
So the guests come, pick up the food they want to take and leave. They
Exactly.
they don't stay inside and eat.
So different places do it differently. There are pluses and minuses to that side. So a nice idea of having guests just go, well, if you have a building that has a clear entry and an exit on the other side, then that can be kind of nice to go through.
Right.
The tricky part with that is if that's how you do it, then it tends to be first come, first served. And so if we do that, for example, and we're Wednesday nights at 5:30, we're going to get a line outside of our door starting at 4 o'clock of people like camping out, wanting food, making sure that they get the first pick. And so I would really like to avoid that if possible. Not only just because that sounds, especially, I want to be sensitive to our families that are picking up after school. And I also want to be sensitive to our volunteers who are coming in. And I also don't want the guests to feel like they have to spend an extra hour and a half of their life each week waiting in line. What we're hoping to do, I'll kind of, let me share the screen again. What I'm hoping to do is that we would have, so this is what our sanctuary looks like right now. So this is the back by, so when you go into the sanctuary from the gathering space, so that we have all of the chairs separated out, like clumps of chairs separated out. Like here's the front of here's like essentially where that word "and" is where the communion table is, and then the stage area of the sanctuary. So that leaves essentially with 6 feet in between all of these spaces. That leaves us with, I believe, 28 sets of chairs, where I think what we will want to do is to be able to say, all right, we start at 5:30, we open the doors at 5:25, 5:20, whatever we want to say. And then we invite people into the sanctuary to sit. And one of the people who would kind of be like the hospitality host, one of our volunteers, would be in charge. Each one of these little sections would have a letter assigned to it or a number or whatever. And then somebody would draw it out so that we'd have random drawings, so that it wasn't about who got here first.
Oh, good.
But it would be this way so that, every 2 minutes we would draw another name or another letter. And so if you were sitting if this is A and B is drawn, then whoever's sitting there gets to go get their food.
Okay.
And so we would use the gathering space. Now, sorry, this is kind of turned upside down. Imagine the top of your screen is the outside doors, the south doors to the church. And then there's that little space in between the two doors. At this pub table is where we'd have the very first person greeting everyone, making sure their mask was on, offering a mask if they needed it, spritzing their hands, and taking the number in their household.
Okay.
So the people would come in, they would go, and then they would go into the sanctuary. But then when their letter or number is called, then they would follow this kind of route map where they would start over here by like room A. And I want to make sure everybody's kind of following me. You know where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so then we would have the food set up in kind of a horseshoe shape. So then you'd walk down this way, past the kitchen, and most of these tables are the 6 foot by 2 foot tables. We have enough. And a few of these would be the 4 foot by 2 foot tables. Use the little Hebrews coffee table as a table, and you'd continue going around, and then people would work their way. And so when they're getting their food, they would be out. Then they would just head on out.
Right.
So there might be a little time, probably from 6:30 to maybe 6:35 or 6:40, where there might be a little extra traffic because there might be people going out while other people are coming in. But other than that, it should help give everyone enough space. And we can also, I know this may not be a perfect diagram. I did map it out, and I did because I'm a geek. But so we might need to move the tables a little bit closer to the center, just so that there's a full 6 feet, because we'll have, ideally, with enough volunteers, we'll have a person behind,
Each
if
table.
not every table, every other table. Because on these tables, we'll have little signs that'll say like 1 per household, 2 per household.
That was my question, is how do they, okay.
Yep. So it'll be kind of our job, for those of us who are there to serve the food when people are there. Our job will mainly be to welcome people with a smile, while at the same time saying, "You can take 1. Please save the rest for everyone else. Thank you." So we kind of get to play, I don't want to say crowd control, but yeah, so it's hospitality, but it's also it's also making
Do
sure.
do they go into the sanctuary through the same doors, or?
Yeah, so the idea would be, I mean, at least how we were initially thinking is everybody goes in through the main doors, and they go, their first stop is into the sanctuary. And then you wait for your number, your letter to be called. And then that's when you go back into the gathering space. You pick up food around the U shape, and then you go.
Would it work to use one of those side doors?
That's what I was wondering,
to the
Kathy.
First door, because that
Yeah.
way they wouldn't be going through, it would be just a big loop, and you wouldn't have people coming and going out of that main
Right.
door. You'd have people leaving out the main door.
So then you could have,
You just put
And
the
then that-
front table back there by that
Right.
side door.
Yeah. And that
Like-
way they could just come in and sit down, find a spot to sit down, and they wouldn't have to.
brilliant. This is
Because
why
they-
we do this.
Because they can come, I mean, they don't have to all be there right at 5:30, is that right? Can they get there at 6 and still, yeah.
Technically, Foodnet's run for an hour. I have never been at one where it's lasted more than 40 minutes.
Okay.
Usually by the hour is by that time all the volunteers have everything taken down. Because ideally you don't want any leftover food.
Right.
What we will do is make sure that we have a good relationship. Since I'm going to be one of the coordinators, I'll be honest, at some point I'm hoping we can have another co-coordinator. But for right now, this would be me. That if we have leftover food, I would contact whoever the coordinators for the Thursday
Okay.
groups and say, hey, we've got like 3 crates of potatoes and 2 crates of soda. Can you come by and get those in the next half hour?
So
And-
the 1 or 2 per family, does that depend on how many are in their family? Can they
That's a
take
great
more
question.
if they have more?
Yeah, and just so you know, like while we're going over all this, my hope is um my hope is that we would have most of our volunteers in place. You know, if we're opening, if it starts at 5:30, my hope is that we'll have the volunteers in place by 5:15.
Mhm.
And at that point, we can do a quick reminder, just go over some of the, make sure everybody knows what's going on, and just remind people. Also, thank all the volunteers. Maybe even get a chance, God forbid, that they get to know one another. Maybe we even have name tags. I don't know.
Name tags. Really? I'll make the name tags.
Wow. Oh, I knew that was going to be exciting.
Okay, calm down. All right.
Yeah, so but and to maybe even offer a prayer beforehand, before we open the doors. So sorry, I can't even remember. I got so excited with name tag. What was the question though?
The number
You were
that each
talking
family
about-
gets. How much each family gets. Was that
Yeah,
right?
so
Can they get
it'll
more?
depend on how. So in the beginning, we're gonna kind of be guessing. And most of the time, what I've seen is that, you know, you've got your person who's the greeter, or somebody even that will kind of like be a volunteer who's just going to greet people outside or kind of keep an eye on things on the outside, who will kind of say like, hey, I know we've still got technically 40 minutes left, but we've only got 50 people to go through. Let's get rid of the stuff, you know, or maybe chicken nut, you know, maybe chicken bags of chicken nuggets are the hot commodity and everybody wants one, but you can't give away the the spinach. And so we say, all right, Diane, just
Chicken
give away
nuggets,
as
you
much
gotta
as
take the
anybody
spinach.
wants. Just give it away with no restrictions. And so
That's
we
gonna
can
be
kind of
different.
change it as it goes.
That's going to be different each week, right? Because we don't know what we're going to get.
We don't know what we're going to get. We don't know how many people will be there, and we don't know exactly when they will be there. So
So that was
all
my
kinds of jazz.
the other, because I had two other questions, because right now with COVID, I don't know how, are we going to, is there a way to make them be 6 feet apart as they wait in line outside, like you do at the DMV? And the other,
I
the
think-
other question, you could just, then I'll let you talk. The other question in that would be, we say we let them in at 5:30, they're lining up at 4:30 and it's freezing ice storm outside. Are we going to let them in early and just not let them go through the line till 5:30? And then what does that create?
Well, if they know the doors don't open until 5:30, they may not stand outside their vehicles at 4:30,
That's true.
you know.
Mhm.
But if
Yeah.
you don't have volunteers there till 5:15, you really can't
That's true.
invite them in.
So your first question about social distancing.
Yeah.
I mean, especially from a facilities standpoint, I have no problem, because I'm thinking if we put the kind of welcome table, I know for those who aren't cardinal directions, I apologize, but the southwest corner of the sanctuary, if we put the welcome table right beside that door, then there's a whole long sidewalk along the side that I have no problem either putting chalk or tape down every 6 feet, just a little X to say, please stand here. And then once they get inside the building, they're going to be separated 6 feet. And
Yeah.
then whoever's calling the letters will be able to time the letters. You know, they'll see like if they're starting to be up, you know, because that's the nice thing about literally being able to see into the gathering space. They'll be able to see if it's too crowded in the sanctuary, they're just going to wait a little longer before calling another number or another letter.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the latest, is it DHM? Where no more than 10 people are supposed to gather.
Yeah, what is that?
How is that gonna affect this?
Is
But-
that for a certain amount of time or not? I don't
Is it
know.
the 15 minutes? Well, it's 25% or 10, right?
I thought it was there something new that came down today?
Well, no,
No.
it's Friday.
It's Friday.
Yeah, that was 25%.
Okay.
I believe. I know
Yeah, I
that
thought it was 25% or 10, but I'm not sure what that means. Because like we can only have 10 people in our office. We never do. But yeah, I don't know what yeah. And I remember there was something about within 15, if you're going to be in there within 15 minutes of each, yeah.
But if these people are waiting possibly 45 minutes,
Are we going to have more than 25%?
So ideally, and again, we don't know how many people are going to show up.
Right.
And I'll be honest, when I first pitched this Foodnet, I will say, I think the first couple of people I spoke to kind of raised their eyebrows of like, what do people in that neighborhood? Nobody needs food.
I think we would be surprised.
I think we will be surprised.
Yeah.
And again, this is not like a government program or something that has limitations. Like somebody may say, I'm hungry enough, I'm going to drive 45 minutes across town or take 7 buses and get down here.
Yeah. And it's
so-
not a homeless necessarily, it's a strapped for money.
Oh yeah. I
A
mean,
lot of people have lost their jobs.
well, Caitlin and I we've done a few volunteering together and like we've run into friends that we know on the other side of the line. And
Yeah.
Nobody would have ever thought we would have gone and gotten food,
Especially after having just owned a bakery.
having had a business. Yeah. I mean, it can be anybody.
Yeah. So I will look more into that, but here's my hope, because regardless of what the legalities or the city restrictions are, so we wouldn't have at most we would have, because sorry, let me backtrack. Each person can only collect for their household. Each person over 16. So here's what kind of doesn't make sense to me, but kind of does. So let's say a mom comes in with 4 kids and she's trying to pick up for a household of 6. She gets the exact same amount of food as a single guy that's just for one household.
Okay. And that was my question earlier. Yeah. Okay.
But if the mom comes in with 4 kids and one of them is 16, they can both collect for their household. And you would mark that whoever is greeting would note that instead of collecting for 6 people, you'd have 2 people, you'd have a person collecting for a household of 6 and another person collecting for a household of 6.
So a husband and wife can do.
So a husband and wife for for a household of 2 could each collect separately. And the wife would get counted as one person collecting for a household of 2. And the husband would come in and get counted as one person collecting for a household of 2. So they'd each get to go through and get for their household.
Oh, okay.
But if only the wife shows up, she can't go through and get for her and a double portion for her husband. The husband would have to be there.
Okay.
Or somebody else in the family that's over 16 who will collect food. I mean, I know, we've had at other sites I've been to volunteers who go through and they collect they collect and then they're like, well, I'm going to give this to my grandma. I don't need it, but she does. So I'm going to pass it on to her. That's fine because the person's over 16 and they just report for themselves.
The point is to A, feed people, and B, not waste food product. I
Yeah,
mean,
in all honesty, I know I didn't get to say it because
you
I know
don't
we're
care
kind
how
of hopping into the logistics, but I really hope about the guiding principles for our Foodnet, because each of them is going to be a little bit different. Here's 3 things that I'm really hoping. Giving quality food to hungry people. And so for me, that means making sure that it's good food, that that we wouldn't serve anything that we ourselves wouldn't want to eat, and that we celebrate and remember that anyone who needs food can have it, volunteer, guest, and that kind of leads to the second thing, that it's a welcoming and safe space. I really appreciate Ken. I don't know if you were naturally doing this or if you picked up on my language of calling them guests. I think that's a really, and I know that we may even come down on some better language, but for sure, I want to make sure that these are people treated with dignity, and the welcome, not only for them but for the volunteers too. You know, I volunteered at some food nets that, oh good God, it was clear that I was invading their volunteer space and they did not want me, and nobody said hi and nobody introduced themselves. And I mean, if you've ever church shopped, you know, you've experienced that at some point of like, wow, not really welcoming in the name of Christ, huh?
Yeah.
And because these are primarily housed through churches, I would say through faith communities, but I think right now it's all Christian churches, but it's open to any traditions or any community centers or anything like that, but it just happens to be churches right now. But that we give a safe and welcoming, and for me, that's safe. So I'm glad that we're going to be, that you all are asking questions about how do we keep it safe, especially during COVID, and how do we make sure that people aren't freezing standing outside, that kind of stuff. I think that's really, really important. And the third thing is that we can participate in our creation care ministries, that we can do good things for the earth. So to reduce food waste, I would really like to have, you know, sometimes we're going to have a lot of boxes come in. I want to make sure that we can have a space, because people will sometimes need boxes or need bags, or they'll be walking around with plastic bags and 25 pounds of food in them and they're going to break. So, you know, I would love to be able to have boxes that we can reuse and give to people to use, and to make sure that if we do have leftovers that we recycle them. And I even know of food nets. You know, I know we compost. I don't know if there's anybody in our church that has chickens, but I know that other food nets that, you know, if you have food scraps, they have a food scrap garbage bag, and and it goes to the composter, to the chicken folks. And so we'd be happy to receive those, or to pass them on to somebody else who wanted them. Because we will go through a lot, because there will be some food that'll be food waste. You know, we'll have things where like there will be a dozen eggs and one will be broken. And so hopefully we'll have some spare egg crates that we can then
Take them out.
repackage, and make sure that we could even, you know, we wanted to have some half dozen options as well for people.
Well, that was my question about, you're talking about the quality of food. Is it close to expiration? Is the fruit good fruit? I mean,
Yeah, some of it. I mean, I'll say, you know, we've the other night, I mean, we have yogurt that we got 2 weeks ago from Foodnet. So that wasn't able to be sold over 2 weeks ago, and we're still eating it, and it's fine.
okay.
Um,
But we don't want a package of spinach that looks like what's in my refrigerator right now.
and there'll be some, you know, and like that'll be a part of our jobs as we prepare
Is,
the food. We'll kind of sort out stuff.
okay,
If
okay,
you wouldn't want to eat, toss it in the compost pile.
okay.
Yeah, and we'll, because stuff will come in. So maybe this is a good time to kind of let me shift to kind of the volunteer
Yeah,
responsibility.
yeah.
But let me just say one last thing about because you asked some really good questions about COVID. Our hope is to make sure to keep people, while they're in our building, to keep them as separate as possible. And we don't want them to have to spend any more time than they need to in here. So we'll try and keep the time as minimal as possible. I will say, I hope that we can do things like, I think our building's really welcoming and friendly. It's also accessible for people with limited abilities but I want to make sure, like, even just simple things like if the sanctuary is kind of our welcome place and our kind of holding place, like let's turn on the music and let's put up we'll do pre-slides that have kind of some announcements as well as a welcome and maybe some inspiring words of scripture and just instructions for how to go through Foodnet that we can just keep on a loop. So stuff like that.
Can I backtrack and ask you this? The person at the pub table that is taking the numbers, and are they getting names?
No, all they need is they'll kind of tally how many people and how many people in their household they are collecting for.
So we have no responsibilities for contact tracing.
That's a good point.
Mm.
We don't. We don't. If you,
Mm.
we could, and that might, we could. Here's the thing too. We also might run into, because I mean, part of Foodnet that it's, that I think some people who need it appreciate its anonymity.
Anonymity, sure.
And so we could ask for people's names. I don't know that we would know them. And
Well, and you don't have to actually do, I mean, my understanding is that we would not actually have to do the contact tracing. But if we discovered someone who had been there was COVID positive and we had the names, I think we can give it to the Department of Health. And they do the contact tracing.
Yeah.
how would we find out that they,
Well, you would have to take their name and phone numbers, but then how do you know if they're giving it right? I mean,
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't know. So I just was asking if there was any.
no, I mean, that's a good
that's
question. And
complicated and convoluted a bit. I mean, it would require somebody to call you and say, hey, I was at Foodnet and I'm COVID positive. I just wanted to let you know. And that's, although if they get tested positive, I think they have to tell
where
where
were.
they've been.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
At least we would know the volunteers that were there. I mean,
Yeah.
So
So I don't know.
It's
Just
hard.
a thought
what do we,
during this time.
Carly's
I don't
brought
know
up
if
a
it-
really good question. What do you all think? What do you think, do you see a clear path on what we should do?
No.
I mean, and we also haven't set, at what temperature do we say,
how are we going to tell them?
be in here?
Right.
Is it like 100.4? Is it 99.9?
And if they refuse to wear a mask, can we refuse service?
Yeah,
mean, that
think
would
so.
be-
That's a requirement.
And so I think that's going to be one of whoever our greeter is has to have that beautiful, hospitable spirit, but also to remember that the first step of hospitality is safety.
Yeah.
And that part of their job is to make sure that they're not letting in anyone who has COVID.
Yeah.
Or anyone who's, obviously going to be a danger to anyone else.
Well, and that was my other question as far as right now we have to worry about COVID, but in your experience with Foodnet, have there ever been any situations where people are belligerent or volatile or, I mean, I would hope there would always be enough volunteers to
Yeah,
ensure that kind of safety. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I
haven't.
hate to think that, but I mean, it's a fact of life. I mean,
No, I haven't experienced that personally, but you've made me think about that enough to I'm going to reach out to a few of the other coordinators and get their thoughts both on like I don't want to call it security, but safety
the
protocol
emotions are running high right now in a
as,
lot
as
of,
well as potential for contact tracing.
right. So
Um, all right.
I have a question. Unless, do they bring their own bags in to take the food away? I don't know if it's a concern or not, but you know, the grocery stores don't
Don't let
allow
you
you
do
to
that.
bring in your outside bags.
right,
Mhm.
right.
Are we going to hand them bags or?
So there's a few ways of doing this. Some of the food nets I've seen, like for example, some of the food nets don't let guests touch the food. Like, they can, like, there may be a box of potatoes, and if you want it, you take the 2 potatoes I'm going to give you.
Right.
Right.
That's
But I've
probably a
also
good idea.
seen other ones where, especially those where they sanitize the hands of everybody coming in, of saying like, well, people still touch all the produce at Hy-Vee, and if they can do it there, is it really that much more of a danger here as people are being forced to sanitize as they
Right.
come in? So I do think, just because I don't think we can get in it's a good question, Dan. I think we allow in bags, and I think we even encourage it. I think we could have some plastic bags there.
Well, just say this, and I'm gonna volunteer this without asking my wife, but you can get 1,000 of those bags that you have at Walmart, the t-shirt
T-shirt bags.
bags, the plastic t-shirt bags. 1,000 costs $14.98. I would think that 1,000 bags would last quite a while. No,
I mean, it would probably last about a month.
really, that's all?
Yeah. 'cause
Well, if we have 100 people
10
come
bags.
through each week, and they're probably
have 5 or
going to
10
get at
bags.
least 2 bags of groceries.
Okay,
And
never
to
mind.
me, it's also then, the environmental impact.
Well, that's true.
I mean, we could have, we could, I'm sure, just say, especially even among our volunteers, if anybody wants to if you have extra plastic bags at home and you want to bring some to the
Mhm.
church, we'll have a
Well,
bin.
Yeah, and I was just thinking of Dan's point of not bringing their own in, but
Mhm.
we would provide them with bags that would only go out,
Meaning-
and never come back in.
Meaning we're going to donate them.
But we're not now, because you're saying that
But
wouldn't,
they're plastic, and that's,
yeah, that wouldn't be enough, so.
I don't know,
Would
unless,
would Russ's happen to donate any bags? Do you think? I mean, if they're providing the food,
they might, and also, don't forget, we're going to have because a lot of this produce is going to come in cardboard boxes.
Right,
There's going to be I think we're going to have a lot of packaging, and I think a lot of people are going to want to bring and plan on bringing their own already.
Mhm.
I'm not against it. I was just curious if it had been thought about.
Because they are not letting, a lot of places are not letting you bring them.
Can that be one of those things that maybe as it goes along, I'm going to put on my back burner, and we'll just be in touch I'll be in touch with all the volunteers and trying to get a sense, what do you think? Do we need to buy some bags? Do we need to say, please don't bring your own bags? And we'll get a sense of it.
And there may be places like Russ's. I know UNL, I mean, the bookstore, there've been a lot of places that just give you a stack of, for one thing, they like to advertise. But the plastic is, that's a consideration too, because it's not,
That's not
Earth friendly.
environmental friendly.
So-
That is absolutely true.
I don't know.
Let me also just say too that just so you know, because I know that this is one of those things that's kind of different at different food nets. At least for the time being, we will not be preparing any food.
Okay.
So for example, sometimes what happens is that like UNL or a school may have 20 gallons of leftover potato salad.
Oh, and they divide it up.
And so then what they would do is one of our drivers would go pick up that 20 gallons. And then once it gets back, one of our volunteers
Puts it in.
would then separate it all out, and we'd have a whole bunch of clamshells or little pint soup containers and separate it out,
But we're not doing
all
that.
that. And I think for right now, let's not do that until we hit our stride. And if we're saying, hey, we got hungry people, we got tons of volunteers, we can take more food, and we can do that. And also I've been trying to I've kind of cleaned out some closet storage space, not only and thinking about cleaning supplies, but also storage for any potential food stuff, any plastic bags, any repackaging things that might be needed for food supplies, for Foodnet, and cleaning supplies. And so we have space in the kitchen, closet, and in the main closet in the church that we've secured for that. But at this point, we aren't doing any kind of cooking meals.
How are we supplying the sanitizer, the spray stuff that?
So right now we've we had purchased that for the church, but we obviously haven't had a chance to employ it and to use it as we're all online.
So
And so right now we have a gallon of the stuff that's meant to be sprayed, that's supposed to be mixed with water and sprayed, and or not water. I can't remember if it's diluted or not. Sorry, that's a Julie office manager kind of thing. I say I trust you, but we should be hearing back. The state said we should be hearing back this week. A grant for PPE that I think we would want to use that grant money to help get some startup for some of the cleaning supplies. But really, the big cleaning supply, what we're going to need is something to clean the cloth chairs. Julie's still looking into what the best thing for that would be, because you don't want bleach water to do that. If they were hard plastic chairs, we could do that. But something just to, at the end of the day, to go down and spray all the chairs. We need some bleach water and rags to wipe down all the tables. I'm sure we'd need some Lysol wipes to wipe down all the surfaces in the kitchen. And then the hand sanitizer, and we're planning on providing gloves, latex gloves for all the volunteers. And then masks, as needed. We're encouraging people to wear their own, but if they don't have it, we don't want that to be. We want to be able to provide one for people.
That's going to be, and I don't know where she's looking to get it. We have had so many problems at our office getting Clorox wipes. We can't find. I mean, you can't get them anywhere.
Yeah,
And
we've had a bit of an issue. At one point, we had 6 containers, 6 of the big containers, and we're down to about 2 of them. And we had ordered 2 months ago from our regular distributor, and at the time, it had said that it was on back order and we should have them in October. And then we checked in on them, and now it says they're out of stock.
We ordered in March and they just canceled our order yesterday and we have none. But I was gonna say UNL was providing it, I mean, free for a long time for not just people on campus, but often, and they've gone back into production now, but I can check on that tomorrow. I mean, they have the big gallons of both hand sanitizer and the spray. And at one point they were providing it to anybody that needed it. But
Okay.
but then they quit production and now they've started again. But it's not the Clorox wipes and it's not the Lysol, because that
Pump Joe
yeah.
that you.
that's next to a pump. But I'll check and see if they're still giving it away free to to people, to churches and that kind of thing.
We would
But
love to find out about that.
yeah, that would be, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, you can talk about your people now.
Yeah, so let me get to that. So there's, well, two main jobs, but we're breaking it down into three main shifts of volunteers. One, and I know that some of you on this call have already expressed that right now with the COVID levels, you would be most comfortable with job number one, which is the driver, the person to go and to pick up food from the site and then bring it to the church and unload it. And then either because we have on the refrigerators in the church, we have the floor plan of how we want it set up, including like table 1 is fruits, tables 2 through 4 are vegetables, table 7 is canned goods or whatever. And so we would have those persons pick up the food, drive it over, and then drop it off either in a freezer, refrigerator, or on the tables, whatever's appropriate for those
What
foods.
times would that be?
Well, hold up, because so it would be, most of them require pickup between 8:30 and 11 a.m.
Morning.
because they want to get them out of the way before the main part of the shopping day.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Foodnet is wanting to start us off with just three Russes. And they say that should probably be enough to feed anywhere from 70 to 100 people each week. And here's the thing. So the reason why we are getting Wednesdays and why this is working out with Foodnet and with Russ's is because there had been a church doing it, but they closed down due to COVID and leadership issues. And so we get to take over their route, but their driver is still willing and able to pick up 2 of those 3 things and has a truck and willing to do it. I didn't feel like I could look a gift horse in the mouth. And so, so the gentleman's name is Kendall. I just spoke all this has been happening today. It's all stuff I've been talking with the leadership for probably 2 months now and keep saying like, what do I not know that I need to know? And then things like, somebody saying, well, you got your badges a while ago, didn't you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? No one told me about badges. And so now there's some lady that I've been on the phone with about badges. So anybody picking up food needs to have a Foodnet badge, which will be provided to us by Foodnet, but we don't currently have those. And so then I also learned about Mr. Kindle today. And so he's willing to pick up 2 of the 3 of those. So the 2 that he's willing to pick up are from the Russes at 17th and Washington and West Coddington, or Coddington and West A. And so he would be able to deliver those to the church probably somewhere between 9 and 9:30 or 10. So I know I will be there, Julie will be there, so we'll be able to help him unload. I will say that might put, for sure, I'm locked in December being a little busy from 9 until 10 with Bible study. And we may want to reassess when our church does Bible study in the future. Because I didn't realize the 8:30, 9:30 pickups. But we still need a driver who would be willing to go to 66th and O Russes, somewhere between 9:30 and 11 a.m. So I don't know if that's someone on this call. I also know that Bill Schwartz has said that he's interested in being a driver. There's somebody who, Judith from the community, who said that she's interested, but right now her husband's high risk, and so she doesn't quite feel comfortable yet. Jean Treese is interested in driving. But right now we really only have a need for one person, and maybe that could kind of be on a rotational thing. But is there anybody who's saying, yeah, I could do that, the 66th and O pick up somewhere between 9:30 to 11 on a Wednesday morning?
Yeah, I could do that.
All right, we got you then.
Well, let me ask you this. What kind of quantity are we talking about here?
Yeah, what kind
I
of
have a
quantity?
small SUV.
Wait, you've got an SUV?
Yeah.
That should be good. Yeah, pretty much they're looking for anybody with SUV, minivan, pickup truck.
Well,
anything
that's what it,
like that.
yeah.
And so we'll make sure to get you a badge, Ken. And I'm not 100% sure. I can get in touch with, or have him get in touch with you. There's the man who generally does the 66th and O pickup. His name is Dale from the previous church. And so I'll have him give you the ins and outs of where, so you just aren't driving around the Russes at 66th and O saying, can I have food? So we'll get you started on that. And then that'll be a nice thing that we'll make sure after we get done with this, in a few days, I'll send out a kind of a little more solidified volunteer list. So that, like, let's say, Ken, you have a week where you're not feeling good, or you and Bev are off to the tropics or whatever, and you want somebody else to pick up the food, that you know who you can give a call to see if they would be able to do it.
Well, you could put me on that reserve or us on that reserve, because two things. If it is too much for your SUV, I have a pickup that would work, but that's only if for whatever reason your SUV isn't big enough. And then the other one is, at this point, Kathy and I are pretty much limiting ourselves to that duty if needed. If not needed, fine. But if needed, because with family Christmas plans and stuff like that, we need to limit our contact for this coming month.
Get it? We get it. We get it. Absolutely.
But if you need a fill in,
We're pretty well situated for the next. We don't have any major plans in front of us. Everything would be kind of incidental to the COVID situation at the time. But we're not interested in really getting in contact, as in a serving situation, but we thought picking up would be fine. Be happy to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's totally understandable. And I want this to always be at whatever comfort level people are at. Yeah, especially with just the unknowns of COVID and yeah. So I said that there are three main jobs. So we've listed the one job. I guess the other two jobs are essentially the same thing. We're just thinking about two different shifts, probably based on people's availability. This would be the kind of setup, serve, and takedown. So we're hoping that there would be team of volunteers, probably about 4 people, 4 to 6, at most 8 people, you would be able to get there somewhere between 3 and 4, 3 and 4:30, and help set up, turn on lights, sort food, set up, make sure the chairs are set up with, it's mostly sorting food. Signs are up, lights are on, all that good stuff. And that would take the time, so that first shift, their job would be to do all the setup and then to serve the food, which would probably be from about 5:30 until about 6. The other set of volunteers are kind of more what we're assuming are going to be the people getting off work that can hopefully get there somewhere between 5 and 5:20, hopefully. And those people would be there just in time to serve right before we open the doors, be there in time to serve, and then to help take down, which usually takes about 15 minutes. So we're talking about sweep up, clean off the tables, make sure we got if there was any leftover food where it needed to go, take out recycling and trash and compost or anything like that, and sweep, put away tables. I'm trying to think. So when I say serve the food, just so you know, with those 2 positions, like I said earlier, it's not
Manning the tables.
it's manning the tables, it's welcoming people, engaging them. One of my favorite Foodnet is at Grace Chapel. It's weird to have a favorite Foodnet. Fridays at 11, but I love it because they're so welcoming, they're so kind to the guests and their volunteers, and it's a lot more volunteers of kids. There's one of the regular volunteers is a mom with an infant on her back, a little papoose infant on her back. And then there's usually about 6 or 8 kids running around. There's a 14-year-old who loves manning the welcome table, the intake table. And then there's a volunteer who I have never seen anyone more passionate about greens. She calls herself the Queen of the Greens. Her real name's Deb, but everybody just knows her as the Queen of the Greens. And she not only greets people, but she finds a way to connect with them and then to say, what kind of food do you like? What flavor do you like? Have you ever cooked Swiss chard? Here, let me show you how you do it. That kind of thing. And just really able to connect with people. And not everybody's going to be a Deb. Not everybody's going to be a Queen of the Greens. Sometimes you just need to be able to stand there and be like, please take just one. Thank you. Yep. Yes, this is half and half. That's milk. Okay, there you go. You can take one. That kind of thing. So those are really the 3 jobs. So we didn't want to have too much of a time commitment, but hopefully that everybody in all of these, they can be about at most 2 hours of your time for a time commitment, so that nobody gets too burnt out or feels like they're shouldering it all, and that everybody can be able to experience a little bit of the welcome and the joy of it. And seriously, y'all, if you haven't ever experienced something like this, I get so amazed. It is, talk about God's bounty and abundance. It is both joyous and terrifying to think about what you are saving from the from the landfills, and to think of the hearts and the households and the tables that are filled because of your ministry. And so it's I'm really excited. So what any other questions? Again, like I said, we have commitments from probably, I'd say 10 to a dozen people. which will be
And
what.
are those people that are willing to, because, you know, I mean, we're kind of like the Wink and Mortars. When we get vaccines and when we calm down and think, I mean, this is right at my alley. I would love to do this. And
But not now.
it's, yeah, do you have people that, and I had mentioned that to you earlier too. I think, you know, I think the teenage granddaughters would be
They
willing.
wouldn't be able to. They're in, when there is no COVID, they are in sports.
Well, when they're in sports, that's true.
but they would only be able to do it.
But for right now, they might be willing to
So, I mean,
get started in.
so I'll admit I did kind of have, you know, you had said that, you know, Emma, Kylie, I don't know, maybe a Cheryl,
Yeah,
involved in there.
and
But
she's about done with her schooling, so she might. I mean, like I said, they did the backpack program before, and they just love that. So that would be something I could definitely ask them, but I just don't know that we can at this point.
so let me tell you this. So in our family, all four of us are planning on doing it. Lisa Gingenbach, I'm not going to count Finn and Isaac, but they'll be there. Lisa Gingenbach, although Isaac loves serving at Matt Talbot, and you know, I mean, I think if it's just saying, and he's done it at Foodnet, and like, so even a 6-year-old can have some really good, and a rock star cleaning up and helping to set up too. So you know, I don't want to discount those gifts. So Lisa, Sherry Ruff, although with Ron Ruff falling, that might be complicated, but maybe she needs that time away for a little bit, and that might be enjoyable. Man, we've got so many maybes. Lyle's going to want to do it. I don't know if I want to allow Lyle to do it because he's going to want to. The Swains have all wanted to, but right now with Saoirse, I'm sure that complicates things. I said there's been some interest from some folks at our AA groups that have committed. The 2 Hispanic pastors that help lead the church that we nest said that they want to be there every week. Sharon Lund,
So you're looking
John,
maybe okay.
And then the Lawsons have said they would like to. So I mean, we're getting
You're
there.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me talk to Emma and Kylie, and Emma drives, so you know they would be dependent. I mean, and it would probably for right now until their sports start up again. But I didn't know where you were on volunteers to serve. I hate to see you start and not have enough, and you know.
The hard part is, you know, most of the food nets, when I was talking to them, they might be a little bit bigger than ours. And so they're like, yeah, we have about, you're going to need like 5 drivers because you're going to have like 5 to 10 places that you're going to pick up and they're going to be all over town. Well, if we're starting off with 3 and 2 of them are already taken care of.
Right.
And right now, I think that's I mean, you're not the Schwartzes also said, yeah, I'll drive because we don't want to do contact right now with COVID.
Right.
And so I just feel bad because I know that there are people such as yourselves that want to volunteer, don't feel comfortable doing those other 2 jobs. And I wish we had more to do.
And we work until 5. We really,
yeah.
I know we come to Bible study, but we do work. So, but yeah, so we're even when it starts getting over, we would have to do the evening thing, and
5:30
and very much want to do that.
Well, and I will say, you know, Dan, maybe I'll talk to you and Kathy, and I don't know if you're comfortable thinking about. So Ken's going to be coming here, or you will, with a shipment with a truck full of, an SUV full of food. And then we're going to have this Kindle guy coming with a full truck full of food. It might not hurt to have another volunteer or 2 to help set it up
And unload.
in the morning.
Yeah.
to help unload, and then, so I don't know if you would maybe Dan, you and Kathy talk about if that's something you'd be comfortable with, if there were like 5 of us bringing in food from trucks into the church and offloading it on the different tables, and probably setting up the tables and offloading it onto the tables.
I think, I don't know, like you say, we'll talk about it, but just off the top of my head, and she can quash this if she wants, but off the top of my head, if you're moving in and out, you can distance yourself from
Yeah.
the other 2 or 3 or 4 people that are there. And to me, that's no different than, not too much different than passing someone on the sidewalk or whatever, the doors will be open.
And we'll be masked, and
There'll be masks, there'll be fresh air. You're not, it's not really a close contact. So that's something that off the top of my head, we might be interesting. So we'll talk it over and we'll let you know.
I was gonna say,
Unless she,
Kathy's just gonna
I've
smile.
seen that look before. I've been on the recipient end of that look.
unless she
Good times with
I
Caitlin.
don't know.
I'm getting it from her too. I get it. I'm going, no, let's go. Calm down. We do have to be careful. We do have both of us have underlying conditions that we do have to be cautious about. So.
I get that.
So what's the launch date?
So the launch date is December 2nd. So that'll be our first date.
Pearl Harbor.
Sorry?
Pearl Harbor.
Wait, second.
Oh, second. Okay, I'm sorry.
Do not to.
Yeah.
2 weeks from tonight, right?
2 weeks from tonight. Yeah. 2 weeks from tonight. That's wild to think about.
And I'll talk to Emma and Kylie here and let you know what they could do.
Please do. And the nice thing about this, for example, John Sweeney is always saying to me, gosh, I wish I had more opportunities. He's a single guy, lives alone. I want more opportunities to serve. I want more opportunities to be around people. I said, well, come help Wednesdays. He's like, well, I don't know if I'll be working. I'm a substitute teacher. And the nice part is, and I was also saying the same thing to Cindy Lawson. She said, we don't know, our schedules are week to week, so we don't know. And I said, great. If you want to, just drop in. This is really set up so that we could have as few, especially in that evening time, we could have as few as 6 or 8 volunteers, but we could easily put to work 16 people that all have some important jobs to do. And
Jean Treese might want to do, because I know she likes to get out and she's come to church. And so I think she would be a good one. Now, if you need name tags made, you just let me know. Get those name tags made.
And we may just have people do the good old, my name is, so especially because what I love and what I hope is, I kept asking this at most of the places that had friendly and welcoming volunteer teams, they tended to have, their volunteers, it was pretty much an even split. Usually the initial volunteers were mostly from the congregation, but then it ended up being a third of third being congregational volunteers, a third usually being like their friends of friends, and then a third usually ended up being people who were guests who were reliable enough, considerate enough, and would say like, hey, I still need food, but I have free time. Can I come and help out?
Oh, okay. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So it's going to start with mostly church folks, which I love that we're also trying to explicitly make sure that we have, with Pastors Henry and Angela from Principe de Paz. They've said they'd make a commitment that either they or somebody from their congregation will be there so that we can guarantee to any of our guests that there's at least one volunteer who speaks Spanish.
Spanish, very good.
I know that the community we serve speaks many more languages than Spanish and English, but at least we got that going for us.
Exactly.
Right, that's good.
Not too shabby for a 99% white congregation.
Yeah, no
Right.
kidding.
We're getting there. Hey, you guys have spent so much time this evening, and I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for the ministry we're going to be able to do together. Any other questions that you can think of about Foodnet, about our Foodnet?
I had one question. How do they know about it?
Yeah, how do they know about it? The traditional way for folks to know about it is
Just word of mouth or?
Foodnet website and to go, but I don't like that. And I've asked around to the Foodnet people, and I'm like, is there any problem with us like broadcasting? Of like, can we promote the fact that we have a Foodnet site
Right.
and invite people? And they're like, yeah, I guess. It's like, yeah, we want if people are, yeah. So I know we're gonna put together some stuff from the church that'll help us. It's like some social media stuff and we'll have like a little. They have you've probably seen them around town. It's a pretty nondescript, but it's a yard sign that'll say Foodnet site here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll have that sign on our door. It'll be on our website.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do you have
Until,
a thought?
well, and they may do it. Does Foodnet thank the donors? I mean, is there a process that is already in place for maintaining that?
Donor relations?
Yeah,
I am really curious about that question myself.
well, I say that to say, until health situation is different,
And we can do something.
that's one thing that I think that we can. I mean, I obviously do that all the time. But maybe that's something that we could do in the off hours if it's not already done. But Foodnet may relate to the donors
All right,
and
check it out.
do that. I would hope that they would.
Yeah, I know. I already reached out to say, because I noticed that there's a lot of food sellers near our immediate neighborhood that aren't on that list of donors. And I was trying to ask like I asked two different people who are on the board about like, would you ever want to expand your donor base? And if so, if you would help guide me, I'd be happy to work with whatever boundaries, but I'd be happy to also make some connections.
Right.
And I kind of got the old church like, well, Doug does that. Doug has always done that. And I'm like, who's that?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so I think there's still just enough of that. Like if you're on the board of Foodnet, what's going on. And for the rest of us,
There's a little
I mean,
bit.
that's like, the video I created, I think they're going to put it on their website.
Well, it's an awesome
It's excellent.
video. We had previously watched it.
Luckily, we watched it because we didn't get any sound tonight. I don't know
But
if they
it's
had sound,
awesome.
but it's a really good video.
Oh, there was no sound on your video?
So you were muted. And I don't know if you muted yourself, if that made the sound, because we didn't have any sound either.
We
That's
were
okay.
wondering if anybody
But
else.
it's excellent.
It's a very good video. Yeah. What program did you use?
Really quick, silly story. I can't remember the name. It's some website. I just like Googled whiteboard video free app. I think it's called like mysimplestory.com or something like that.
Really good.
But the problem is that it's one of those where if you've ever tried to do something like this, they're like, oh yeah, it's free to use. And then, but then you had to have like this computer automated. It was like Foodnet of Lincoln, Tommy Phil, not landfill. And it's like, oh, And so it had all the cool, like little swish and bonk noises and all this stuff. But I had to re-record all of that. So I used all the graphics that they did and then used the software that I use for worship and the music that I use for worship, did a voiceover timed to that.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then had to go and download sound effects that then also were timed to those.
Well, wow.
You're very good, and it was
It was really
excellent.
I'll tell you, if I would have done that 9 months ago, I couldn't have. COVID has changed some things.
You
in
have
my
Yep, it's changed.
It's
the
kinda like
museum for sure.
We bought the girls these little robots for Christmas, and they're obviously made in another country because the voice is like a
It's like an Asian.
Asian,
accent,
yeah. They go on, instead of going on patrol, they go on patrol. And I mean, so yeah, I understand what you're saying. But yeah, you did a really good job. I was very impressed.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But so all that is to say, I think as far as organizational
They have all
structure
that.
of Foodnet, I don't think they know what they don't know.
Okay.
And maybe that would come over time. And you know, in the way that like I could even see us, I'm not saying this, but I could even see us over time, especially post-COVID, like not only being a place where we could repackage food, but maybe part of the volunteers, like there's a meal beforehand for the volunteers.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
You know, that kind of stuff where it's
Yeah.
really building community. Or I've talked a lot with Keith Brown about this, and some other folks. You know, maybe we build in some different youth opportunities that would be start like if most of the people have made it through the line by 6, youth from 6 to 7 or something like that, or age appropriate break-off groups,
Right.
something like that, where people, and you don't know, is somebody here from the church? Is somebody here because they're needing food? Is it because they volunteer because their parents in AA? You don't know. You're just all in the same place and you're building community together because, as we started off 2 hours ago, food has that magic ability to bring us together.
Yes. Yes.
So I'll leave it there.
Okay.
And I'm grateful for you all doing that. And thank you for dreaming and having excitement at this new thing. And we'll be in touch.